I'd like to take this time to welcome you to City Hall. This is our meeting for January 7th. On behalf of all of our staff and the City Council, as Mayor Strump, I would like to welcome you all and wish you a Happy New Year. We'll first start our meeting tonight with a prayer led by Councilman Sean Schulte, and please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, as we begin 2013, it is good to be alive, and we thank you for your goodness this past year. We ask for wisdom, strength, and courage, individually and as a city, to live our lives in a way that is pleasing to you this new year. May we seek our identity in Christ and continue to grow in our relationship with him. As we take clear steps of faith, may our examples testify to the gospel of God's grace. May you find us focused on Christ, faithful and righteous in 2013. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Once again, welcome. I ask the clerk to have roll call, please.
Here.
Carroll. Henry.
Here.
Lubert.
Here.
Mahalovich. Pope.
Here.
Prather.
Here.
Schulte.
Here.
Scribner.
Here.
Weber.
Here.
All right, we do have a quorum tonight. First, we'll move on to number 6 under public hearings, Janice McMillan and Bill 2012-127.
Thank you, Mayor. This bill comes to the council as a result of 2 petitions for voluntary annexation. One from the owners of the property at 2239 Ridge Road, owned by Sherry and Joshua Carlisle, and 2243 Ridge Road, owned by Charles Howard. Planning and Zoning Commission did review the zoning plan for these properties and approved an RS3 zoning. You'll see from this location map that these properties actually abut Covington Gardens subdivision, which share common property line. Here's another exhibit showing the locations of these properties. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff? Okay, since this is a public hearing, is there anyone here to speak in favor of Bill 2012-127? Opposed? All right, seeing none of either at this point in time, debate from the council. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Read it.
Oh, sorry. The clerk's reminding me that we need to read it one more time. Phyllis.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, providing for the voluntary annexation of real property contiguous to the present city limits into the City of Jefferson, Missouri, located at 2239 and 2243 Ridge Road, described as lots 28, 29, and part of Lot 30, Longview subdivision in the County of Cole, State of Missouri, and amending Section 117 of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, defining the existing city boundary by adding 1 new subsection pertaining to the same subject.
Debate by council. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Bray.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Lubert.
Aye.
Pope.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Schulte.
Aye.
Scribner.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next we have B, which is Tanner Bridge sewer extension and also environmental clearance. Mr. Eric Seaman. Welcome, Eric. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mayor. We're just firing up the PowerPoint. Generally, it's the intent of the city to, keep the public abreast of our capital improvements projects, and this one also has the added requirement that the state of Missouri requires us to do this to utilize state revolving loan funds. And this project, we've already closed on the loan, but we need to conduct a public hearing in order to utilize the loan funds for this purpose. And there are 2 distinct public hearings. There's a facility plan where we discuss the project, and then also the environmental clearances that we have acquired. So the first public hearing is on the facility plan. This is a report Bartlett and West, our consultant, wrote this report to help us find the correct way to do this project and to serve the area. And representing Bartlett and West is Mr. Bob Gilbert, and he can, if I dig too deeply, he can come in and help me out. Just the background on the project. The area is bordered on the west by Highway 54 and on the north by Highway 179, and then on the east by Tanner Bridge. And the entire area drains to the Moreau River. The area known as the Rickman Center annexed into the city in 2005. And the South Christie Lane drainage areas drain to this location. And the city and developers had the foresight to install crossings of Route B and the interchange so that sewer could be extended at a later date. And it needs to be pointed out too, the Moreau River is one of our highest quality classified water streams in central Missouri. It's protected by the state for human health, secondary contact recreation such as swimming, and also fish consumption. And it's also a warm weather aquatic life protected stream. And in this area, the Southwood Hills subdivision has a DNR permitted facility. So all the other areas then are on-site systems, and they don't have the capability to meet the water quality required for the Moreau River. Then the closest city facilities are over at Tanner Bridge. That's over on the east side of this area. The options to serve this area, they contemplated 4 options. The first was to pump out of the city to the Southwood Hills facility as it existed. And the operators of that system were forthright with us. They said we could accommodate 1 connection, but beyond that they wouldn't guarantee anything. So we modeled that option as a kind of a cheap initial cost, but then expensive future costs, either having to turn around and pump it back into the city or to assist them in expanding their facilities. The second option we looked at was to pump it to the city facilities at Tanner Bridge. And that's about a $1.6 million initial costs, and to expand and be able to treat ultimate capacity about $400,000. A third option they looked at was not very feasible. It was constructing a treatment plant on the site. And we had talked about the Moreau River. We'd have to have a very high level of treatment to meet the water quality standards to discharge to the Moreau. And then, as always, there's the option to do nothing, and that essentially doesn't protect, it doesn't provide sewer service to the area, and it doesn't protect the receiving stream. So of the options, pumping to the city system at Tanner Bridge was the most cost-effective option. So the recommended project is to build a pump station at the Rickman facility, and also include about 5,000 feet of force main to pump it into the city system, and about 2,600 feet of gravity sewer. And then this, it kind of goes without saying, this would open up the area for future development, the Christie Lane area, and other places that drain to this location. And that's basically the presentation on the facility plan.
Any questions of Mr. Seaman? Mr. Scribner?
Eric, are you telling us that essentially what you are constructing here is just the transportation portion of this? You're really, are you connecting entities, and if so, how many entities would be connected to this?
There would be one initial connection, and that would be the Rickman facility.
So essentially you're building something that maybe would have a 20-year life, or I noticed you used 20-year projection there, so you would anticipate that this facility that you're building would service that entire area for the next 20 years?
We think it does have a pretty good life to start out with, and the real issue in this, and you know, Bartlett and West covered it really well in the facility plan, is that you know, depending on density, you could have quite a bit of flow at some point, but we have several years in the initial phase of this project, so the 20 years is not really out of that probably will cover it.
And I guess the last question is, are there others in the area that are that you anticipate will be connecting, or again, is this going to service just Rickman initially?
Well, there's been some talk about development in the South Christie Lane area in the past, and then there's you know, commercial development potential along 179. That's been discussed before, so nothing really specific.
But there's no one lined up to connect at this time?
Correct, just the Rickman Center.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Mr. Lubert?
Is there ever a revenue test for a project like this?
Well, I guess on this one we didn't look at it. It was part of the master plan, so we didn't figure in a cost recovery for connections. It was you know, starting a new drainage area, and so that part was not considered.
On a map that was sent to us, and I guess you got it up there someplace, there's it looks like it's probably, what, west of Highway 54, there's a whole bunch of, look like residences that are numbered. And when I looked at this first, I assumed that those would all be connected to this system, but you're telling me that there's only one connection initially.
Right. The area that you see in the corner.
Upper right, yeah.
Yeah, on the if that's the, and I believe that's the Sherrill Lane subdivision in the county. I think those are already part of the system.
Okay.
We do have service through most of that area.
And is everything that we're covering with this part of the city? Is it included in the city limits currently?
The well, I guess that's something we were going to discuss. Some of the infrastructure touches places that aren't annexed into the city, but that was going to be a requirement for the rest of it, to get the rest of the infrastructure built.
Any other questions of Eric? Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to start the environmental clearances are pretty brief. You have to acquire 7 environmental clearances in order to fund a project like this. And just to say what they are: the Army Corps of Engineers, the State of Missouri Office of Administration, Department of Natural Resources Geology and Land Survey, the Missouri Department of Natural Resources Division of State Parks, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and then after those 5, there are 2 that actually provided comments. We had approval from the first 5, and then the final 2 approved the project, but they had provided comments. The Department of Conservation asked us to avoid bats in cave habitat, eagle nesting locations, and sturgeon habitat, but they did accept our project as of January 31st, 2011. The State Historic Preservation Office requested a Phase 1 archaeological survey, and we did complete that, and it was accepted by the state in May 29 of 2012. So that's the environmental part of the project.
Okay. Any questions of Eric on that part? Eric, while you're here, I'm going to ask the council for a moment, if they don't mind. I know you have another thing that you were going to talk to us about posting wet weather sewer overflows. Would you be prepared to do that now? Is that okay with the council if we change the agenda? All right, thank you, council. Eric, go right ahead.
We're just kind of waiting for a PowerPoint.
That's fine.
Just as a background, this was brought forward from the Stormwater Quality Advisory Committee and the Public Works and Planning Committee. Both committees asked that we bring this information forward. We do have an outstanding compliance issue with the Department of Natural Resources. In 2009, they recognized that we had constructed wet weather overflows, and they requested that we remove those as soon as possible. And what a constructed wet weather overflow is, they were constructed decades ago to allow the sanitary sewers to overflow prior to backing up into buildings and homes during excessive wet weather. These only occur when the sanitary sewer is overwhelmed by a lot of infiltration and inflow, and that proof is about 4 or 5 inch rainfall in a 24-hour period. So it takes an excessive rainfall to get there. The city has made considerable progress on getting these overflows taken away. If you look back to 2003, we had 18 of these in the system, and at this point, we're down to 7 of those outfalls, and it certainly hasn't been without a lot of expenditure of money. It's just under $26 million has been expended to get us to this point. And we mentioned that of the 7, we have 1 that will go away once the Coal Junction pump station is in service, and then we have plans to get rid of the other 6 of these. So if you look at the public health aspect of the wet weather sanitary sewer overflows, and generally people don't recreate in urban streams, and especially during inclement weather. So this is an added precaution that the Environmental Protection Agency has asked communities to look at, and they would be placing a sign at the outfall of these wet weather overflows and then downstream to provide public notice of them. So the sign we propose is modeled after the St. Louis Metropolitan Sewer District. It was approved by the EPA in their consent decree. So what we did is we modeled that sign and placed our information on it. The sign is kind of large. It's about 1.5 by 2 feet, but it should be well seen. And in placing these signs, we're not giving up we are required to monitor and report wet weather overflows. We're not escaping any responsibility for those. Just to point out the locations where these would be posted, the first one is at JC Drive, and it's down the road from Gray Bar and in the area where the Florsheim shoe outlet used to be. That location, that'll actually go away once the Coal Junction pump station is in operation, which should be later this year. 2 more locations are located in the west end of town. The first one is of significance. It's upstream of the Bel Air Elementary School. So we have that one to discuss, and then also one downstream in a field that is north of Wesley and Geneva Street. Then a 4th one is located at the Hazelton pump station, and it discharges to a tributary that goes directly to the Missouri River, so that it does go through backyards in the west end there at Hazelton. 2 more are located down kind of where the Pringer Center is, south of Stadium at Romar and John Streets, and significantly that is upstream of the high school practice fields. So there is that the stream is open there, and there is potential for contact. That water body is the east branch of Wares Creek. Then the final location is also in the west end. It's at Valley View Court, and it just discharges to the west branch of Wares Creek. Now, the specific recommendations from the Stormwater Quality Advisory Committee, for the outfall at Bel Air School, they asked us to work with the school district and post the outfalls every 100 feet downstream of the outfall, and then they would face the school property so that this was well seen. Along residential areas, they recommended that we place them at the outfall and then at every other lot. And in non-residential areas, they recommended that we place it at the outfall and then every location where there's public access to the stream. And we do see these footpaths that lead up to the streams in certain areas. So we understand that recommendation. They also recommended to place this information on the website so that people could be directed there if they would be transparent about this and let them know what this program is about. They also recommended placing a smaller sign at each outfall that explains our success in getting rid of these overflows, and then a timeline that we expected this specific overflow to be eliminated. And then they recommended, obviously, that we keep them up, that we inspect the signs once they're installed, especially after flood events, and make sure that they were well taken care of and not vandalized. And then they also recommended we remove the signs once the overflows were eliminated. And those are the recommendations that we brought forward from the committees. And I think the intent was for this to be informational and also, get more comments from you all.
Sure. Any comments or questions from the council to staff? Mr. Lubert.
Have you ever inspected the streams after a discharge, after they run out and settle down again?
Yes.
Do you find solid material, or is it pretty well washed away?
That's a good point. After a rain event, there's generally not inorganic material in the stream.
Okay. I guess what's in the sewers itself is extremely diluted because of the stormwater, plus a lot of other water in the stream itself. So it.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Essentially, once the sewer becomes flooded, or it's actually transports most of the solids downstream, and the plant receives most of that debris, and as you say, it swells up beyond that, and mostly what it does to get discharged is dilute in stormwater primarily.
Okay. All right. Any other questions of Eric? Eric, thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate everything your department does for us. You guys do an excellent job. Moving on to minutes and reports filed here at City Hall. Finance report for November 2012. Housing Authority report for November 15th. Planning and Zoning Commission of November 8th. And Cemetery Resource Board of October 18th. If you'd like to serve on one of our boards or commissions, you can do so by checking our website, which is jeffcitymo.org. Next, we'll have council committee reports. Councilwoman Carey is absent tonight. She chairs the admin committee. Someone have a report for that committee? Seeing none, I see here that looks like the next meeting is January 23rd. Moving on to finance, Mr. Sean Schulte.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Committee has not met since the last council meeting. Our next Finance Committee meeting is Tuesday, January 22nd, 7:30 a.m. across the hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schulte. Moving on, Public Safety, Dr. Brian Pope.
We have no report tonight. Our next meeting will be Thursday, January 31st.
Okay, moving on, Public Works and Planning, Bob Scribner.
Likewise, we haven't met, so there's no report tonight, but our next meeting will be Thursday, January 24th, across the hall, 7:30 a.m.
Okay, and next I have here underneath E, under Liaison Reports, Councilman Larry Henry. Larry.
Also, we haven't had a meeting since our last council meeting, but our next JCTV meeting will be this Thursday, the 10th. Is that the 10th, Michelle? Is it the 10th at 2 p.m.? Okay.
Any other liaison reports tonight by council members? Seeing none, no appointments by the mayor tonight. Moving on, we've already talked about Mr. Seaman's wet weather posting of that signage. Moving on next, we have announcements by staff And I'll call on Janice McMillan.
Thank you,
Janice.
Mayor. The council's annexation committee will meet on Monday, January 14th at 5:30 in this room, council chamber.
All right, any questions there? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to bills introduced. Well, first of all, consent agenda. At this point in time, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as is.
So move.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now we'll have bills introduced. First bill 129. Nathan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a bill, as you know, we created a new insurance program where we increased the deductible that we require from our employees, but the city reimburses the employee for that deductible, and we saved a lot of money by doing that. However, part of that is we have to have an account that essentially that the insurance company draws in out of, and that requires putting some money in that account. This would be money that would be continually replenished by our regular budget, but the deposit on that account essentially is new money coming in, and that is $5,000. And so we would take that from the general fund so that when the whole program ends, that money would go back into the general fund. It would not decrease our overall general fund balance because the money would still be in our accounts. It would just move part of the general fund from unrestricted fund balance to restricted fund balance.
Okay, any questions on 129? We'll have to have first reading, please.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending the 2012-2013 budget of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by appropriating additional funds within the general fund.
All right, next we'll move on to 2012-130. First reading, please.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending Chapter 35, the zoning code, relating to office uses in the M2 General Industrial Zoning District.
Ms. McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor. This amendment would allow or reinstate office uses in the M2 General Industrial District. Prior to the 2002 zoning code rewrite, offices were permitted in this particular zoning district, and many office uses do continue to exist as non-conforming uses in the M2 district. The Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this amendment at their meeting on December 13th and recommended that it be approved. Public hearing is scheduled for Tuesday, January 22nd in the council chamber.
Any questions of Janice? All right, seeing none, we'll move into first reading of 2012-131, please.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri accepting and approving the final subdivision plat of a replat of Lot 4 of American Subdivision, Section 2, a subdivision of the City of Jefferson, Missouri.
Janice.
Thank you, Mayor. This property, or the subject property, is located near the intersection of Missouri Boulevard and Wildwood Drive. This is a minor subdivision of an existing lot on which Lowe's is located, American Subdivision Section 2. Lot 4B will be created on this particular lot, and we have a proposal to permit a Chick-fil-A restaurant on this particular parcel. Be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Janice? Okay, moving on to 2012-132.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending the 2012-2013 budget of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by recognizing revenue from the sale of Neighborhood Stabilization Program properties.
Janice.
Thank you, Mayor. This bill will recognize funds that we've received from Neighborhood Stabilization Program properties. We sold 2 properties this last year in 2012, and we need to recognize that as revenue so that it can be used for the program.
Okay, any questions for Janice on 132? Seeing none, we'll move on to bills pending. We'll have third reading of 2012-118.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri amending the 2012-2013 budget of the City of Jefferson, Missouri by appropriating additional funds from the general fund to the City Clerk Elections Fund.
Mr. Hilpert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This bill would take $40,000 from the fund balance and put it in the clerk for elections. the November election was quite expensive and actually exceeded our entire year's budget. So we still have a February and April election, and possibly, depending on what the annexation committee does, in August and September. And I think Councilman Schulte, you might have had a amendment to this.
I have a question on
Sure.
on the original dollar amount. Would it have been less if we would have not had a annexation?
I believe that was the only election, so we wouldn't have paid a penny of
Okay,
it.
so that's and it was a huge election.
Absolutely.
So all the ballots, all the above, all the printing. Okay, Mr. Schulte.
Thank you, Mayor. As sponsor of the bill, I'd like to put this on the informal calendar for further discussion and bring it back at our next meeting.
Okay. I guess that's where it will stay with the maker, Mr. Schulte. Moving on, we'll have third reading of 119, please.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the Personnel Policy Manual regarding the use of email and social media.
Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This would adopt a social media policy for the city employees. It prohibits inappropriate postings, even if it's your own private account, and it does define what those inappropriate postings would be. It adopts citywide the fire department's policy on prohibiting taking pictures of videos and scenes that avoid some litigation that's out there potentially. And finally, it prohibits the use of any group email for any non-city business, those group emails being those set up by the IT department.
Okay. Any questions of staff on 119? Seeing none. Mr. Schulte.
Thank you, Mayor. I had voiced during the pre-meeting of my intention to offer a substitute for this bill. The portion of the bill that I was going to offer the substitute on is not a part of the bill that is currently being amended. And so to give my fellow councilpersons additional time to review a proposed substitution and to work and refine the language with staff, I am going to offer a new bill at a later date that affects only that portion that I would like to substitute. And so we can go ahead and vote on this bill as currently written, and then I'll bring another bill at a later date to address that
So
sentence.
basically, you'll be bringing a bill forward later to talk about what you may have tried to amend tonight.
Correct.
Is
And
that-
it
is that
does
right?
not affect any of the current language as proposed in the bill.
Okay. So maybe like an addition to this.
Correct.
Would that be a good way to put it, Sean?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, with that in mind, any questions on 119 of staff? Any debate on 119 by council? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Henry,
Aye.
Lubert,
Aye.
Mahalovich,
Aye.
Pope,
Aye.
Prather,
Aye.
Schulte,
Aye.
Scrivener,
Aye.
Weber,
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2012-120.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, amending the code to remove code section reference in traffic schedules.
Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The traffic schedules all start by saying pursuant to section such and such, the following limitations are imposed. In order to prevent these becoming out of date with the code from which it references, all this does is to remove that phraseology from the traffic schedules. It doesn't have any practical effect, except it makes it easier for Phyllis and me and everybody else to keep track of everything.
It's a self-indulgent bill then, basically.
I like to say we're doing it for Phyllis, and everybody likes Phyllis. I don't know how you feel about me.
And it helps the law department too. Okay. Any questions of staff on 120? Seeing none, debate. Roll call, please.
Lubert,
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Pope,
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Schulte.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of Bill 121.
An ordinance amending sections 7-271 membership and 7-272 terms of membership of the Code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri pertaining to the Tax Increment Financing Commission.
Mr. Hilpert.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The state updated the TIF Commission statute and changing the membership from a 9 to 11 member board. we need to therefore update ours. So we're moving it from 11 to 9. 2 of the members are represented by the county, 2 members school board, 1 member who represents all the other taxing districts, and the rest are appointed by us. We're just mimicking state law on this.
Okay. Any questions, Drew, on 124? I'm sorry, that was 121, actually. Any debate? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Pope.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Schulte.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Lubert.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2012-124.
An ordinance of the City of Jefferson, Missouri, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute an agreement with the Chamber of Commerce for economic development services.
Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was time again to renew the contract with the Chamber for Economic Services, but we took this opportunity to update the contract with some of the metrics that we use, that the council's kind of been going towards, or at least they did with the CVB. And so we worked with the Chamber, came up with these particular metrics, kind of updated the language of the services that they provide. And if you have any questions about the specifics, I'm certainly willing to go into it.
Any questions for staff on 124? Any debate on 124? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Pope.
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Schulte.
Aye.
Scrivener.
Aye.
Weber.
Aye.
Bray.
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Lubert.
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll have third reading of 2012-125.
An ordinance amending the code of the City of Jefferson, Missouri pertaining to membership of Facade Improvement Committee.
Janice.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 13963 was passed in 2005, and that created a facade improvement program. Also created by that ordinance was a citizen board, the Facade Improvement Committee, which has been operating in an ad hoc fashion. We would like to install that committee in Chapter 7, Boards and Commissions, to ensure that members are appointed and reappointed according to a prescribed schedule. This bill will remove the language pertaining to the organization of that committee from Section 17-401 and place it in a new section in Chapter 7. And I believe Councilman Bray has a substitute for the
Mr.
current
Bray.
bill.
I would like to offer a substitute for Bill 125. I believe everyone has a copy of
This
it.
is the one in front of us?
Yes.
Okay.
And basically what it does, it identifies that of the 5 members of the committee, 2 of them will come from the Historic Preservation Commission.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, there's been a substitute, a motion and a second for the substitute. Now we'll have discussion on the substitute. Mr. Weber.
Can't the mayor appoint all 5 with, then we just put in there 2 of them come from historic preservation? The way I read this, the mayor only appoints 3, and it's an automatic. Historic preservation selects their own to be on it. In essence, the mayor loses control of that committee by 2 members, the way I look at it. And, you know, it might just, I mean, I think it's good to have 2 members of the historic preservation, and they can pick who they want, but the mayor ultimately and the council should have final say.
I have a question for Drew. How many other boards or commissions are set up that way where at the board or commission level they pick someone that's a ad hoc, I guess, almost committee on their own?
There are some. The one that springs to mind immediately is the EQC has a member of Parks. They have to pick one.
And Planning and Zoning. EQC has a member from Parks and Recreation
okay.
and one from Planning and Zoning.
Oh, okay.
And,
And,
each
and
of
those aren't
elect their own
appointed
members.
by,
Right. They're
by
picked by.
the office of mayor or the council.
Right.
Those are done on their own.
But you could do it the way Councilman Weber suggests also. There's no, you could
Yeah.
amend it to say that.
I just didn't know what our other policy was. Mr. Scribner.
How large are those committees as compared to the 5 for this committee? Are those larger committees?
What is the size?
I believe EQC has perhaps seven members. I think that's right.
I would think that I would be more in favor of Councilman Weber's suggestion that the mayor appoint all five. And if you want to designate two of them from historic preservation, I wouldn't necessarily object to that, although I'm not much one for having any kinds of restrictions on who the mayor would want to choose.
Excuse me.
Dr. Pope?
What is our custom of citizens serving on multiple boards and commissions?
I guess I can answer that. I think we allow that.
But
I think
how
if
often
someone-
does it happen?
It can, there's some that do cross over, and maybe they're the ones that are the liaison from one committee to the next. But it does happen. I can't say a lot, Gail.
I can't speak for Councilman Bray's motivation here, other than that these are people that are interested in these projects. But I do think there's sometimes a problem with getting adequate numbers of volunteers, and this makes it possible, instead of trying to completely fill two boards and commissions with a less than optimal pool of applicants, you're being able to start with two of them already with some expressed interest. So that,
Right.
I mean, I didn't know anything about this.
Mr. Scribner?
You could have the opposite situation, though, where you have a lot of people that are interested, and especially as we seem to be more and more interested as a community in preservation and restoration and so forth. I would think that if you just let the mayor appoint 5 persons and 2 of them from historic preservation expressed an interest, you could always appoint 2 of those people. If you had other interest in other persons, if you weren't restricted to those 2, then you could have more citizens serving, and that's the whole idea of committees and commissions anyway, is to have citizens serve. So I would be reluctant to place a restriction that would say that you had to take 2 from historic preservation. Nothing to prohibit you from doing it, but certainly I'd hate to put the restriction in there, said you had to.
I have a question for Drew. What would happen? Well, never mind. I guess that wouldn't be an opportunity, so my bad. Mr. Bray?
Provide some background. I do not know for sure, but my guess is that if there hadn't been a facade improvement committee established in 2005, and if we were doing that today, my guess is that we would simply assign the responsibilities of the facade improvement committee to the Historic Preservation Commission. That's right. That's the type of work they do at that commission. Work with old buildings, and many or most of these neighborhood improvements will be with older buildings. However, the reason for the 3 and the 2 is recognizing that in 2005 there was a committee established for that purpose. So, as a compromise, perhaps, to respect and continue to get the efforts of the folks that were on the committee from several years ago, in order to keep them active and involved, but also get the advantage of the Historic Preservation Commission. This was something of a compromise to be sure we had the input of the Historic Preservation Commission without causing them to do all of the to take care of all of the neighborhood improvement program. And so allow 3 of the members from the Neighborhood Improvement Committee, and then 2 have the Historic Preservation Commission assign 2 of their own to join that committee. Under the circumstances, it seemed like that might be the best compromise to work out. If if there are strong feelings among the council for a different arrangement, I'd be open to ideas and suggestions, and perhaps we could talk further about it if you would want to. But that's why it came about.
I guess in response, it's hard for me to feel real strongly in opposition to what you're saying, but I still think that I'd lean toward the idea of more flexibility. The idea that you can have as many people serving as you do, and I don't even know how large the Historic Preservation Committee is. How many are on that committee now?
10.
Okay, so you have 10 on there now. If you have the facade committee and 5, that's 15 opportunities for people in the community to serve. And if you leave the flexibility there for the mayor, there's nothing that would prevent him, I would presume, from appointing 5 people from the Historic Preservation Committee if he chose to. So, you know,
Sounds like you got my playbook.
yeah, you know, I mean,
Let
I don't think it's anything to argue over, Ralph. I really don't, but I'm just expressing my opinion.
Ralph, I can't, if I could, I can't break a tie tonight. Ralph had told me about this kind of early on, about his intentions. I don't have a problem with the way the substitute is. I think both are good ideas. I also don't have a problem with Mr. Weber's idea of 2 of them would need to come from that committee with not just the mayor, but also the council having a final say-so on exactly who those people are. So I'm all good. Mr. Bray.
I would like to offer an amendment under C, where it says 3 members shall be appointed. I would delete the word 3 and insert the word 5. In the second sentence of C, that begins with the word 2, between 2 and members, insert the words "of those." So it reads 2 of those members. And in that same sentence, after the word appointed is the word by. I would like to delete the word by and insert the word from. And after the name Historic Preservation Commission, place the period there and delete the rest of that line. The end result is, it would read, 5 members shall be appointed by the mayor with advice and consent of the council. 2 of those members shall be appointed from the Historic Preservation Commission, period.
Okay, is there a second? Mr. Mihaljevic got the second. Okay, discussion. Mr. Lubert.
Are we saying then that those 2 members would drop off of the historic preservation and?
No, I'd ask Drew, but it seems to me they'd be part of that committee and also part of this.
Yeah, I agree.
Kind of give whomever a pool in order to pick from off historic preservation. All right, any more debate or discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please. Oh, sorry. First, we have to vote on the amendment, right? Got to follow my tree. Okay, now we'll vote on the amendment. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just saying it could be a voice vote.
I didn't know what you were saying
Yeah,
earlier.
no.
I thought, where's your tie? I'm like, I don't have a tie on. Get our signs right. Until it's a new year. Cheap TV. Voice vote, please. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Now we'll vote on the original amendment as.
Motion to accept the substitute.
What's that? Now, motion to accept this substitute
Yeah, as amended.
as amended. A first and a second, please.
We have-
Or I think you've got that.
we have-
That was, I think it was Councilman Bray and maybe Dr. Pope. So now you're just ready to vote on the substitute as amended,
Okay,
which you can do as a voice vote.
I can. That's this sign, right?
Yes, that's
Okay. Now we'll vote on the amendment.
you're
as-
voting to adopt the substitute as amended.
Oh, there you go. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Yep. Now you're ready to vote with a roll call on the whole thing.
On the original bill as amended, correct?
And substitute.
And substituted. Okay. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Prather,
Aye.
Schulte. Scrivener,
Aye.
Weber. Bray,
Aye.
Henry.
Aye.
Lubert,
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Pope.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, we'll move into third reading of 2012-126.
An ordinance amending the code of the city of Jefferson, Missouri, requiring markers for new graves in Longview Cemetery and amending the fee for a cemetery lot.
Ms. McMillan.
Thank you, Mayor. Longview Cemetery is owned and operated by the city, and currently there is no requirement for permanent markers or gravestones in that cemetery. The cemetery board recently recommended that new burials in Longview Cemetery be required to include gravestones. Small gravestone markers are available from monument companies at a modest cost. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of staff on 126? Debate? Roll call, please.
Schulte,
Aye.
Scrivener,
Aye.
Weber. Bray,
Aye.
Henry,
Aye.
Lubert,
Aye.
Mahalovich.
Aye.
Pope,
Aye.
Prather.
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Motion passes. Anyone under number 19, clerk? None? Any business on 20 through 23? Seeing none, I do have one quick announcement. I know we're going to talk more about this in the future, but Chief Rennick, I know in our since our last meeting, you made a very big announcement, and just wanted to say congratulations to you, not only from my office but the entire council. You've served our city well, and is it March or April, Bob? I'm trying to remember.
Intention is between the 1st and the 14th of March.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure working with you a long time. I know 33 and a third year is a long time, and you've done a great job here.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Thank you. Look forward to sending you out with a grand party. At this point in time, we'll call for an adjournment. So moved. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you and good night. Happy New Year.